Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. It is Monday, January 2nd, 2023. Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is John June, obviously, and this guy to my left, my co-host, G Money. Greg Penniman is his government name, but we call him G Money sometimes. Greg, how you doing today?
Feeling real good. Championship weeks for a lot of teams. The Giants are in the playoff bound since I was like even in my 20s, like early 20s. So yeah, it's a good time for Giant football. Making the playoffs, get to see some relevant football. That's nice.
Yeah, at least one of the MetLife Stadium inhabitants get to go to the postseason this year, and unfortunately for myself and Jet fans alike, it will not be the New York Jets, as they were eliminated from playoff contention. Looks like the magic ran out for Mike White there. In a terrible loss, but that's not what we're here to talk about, or the terrible losses that I will have encountered in 3 of my 5 championships. Greg, somebody asked me, somebody was like, "Oh, how are you doing in fantasy this year?" And I was like, "I'm in 5 championship games," and they're like, "Okay, well, how's it going?" And I'm like, "All right, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose 3," and they're like, "Oh, that's great. That means you won 2," and I'm like, "No. It means I lost 3. That's what that means, right?" And then I had to explain to them that in fantasy, there's only the pain and agony of defeat, of losing a matchup, and then there is the relief when you don't lose a matchup. Mm-hmm. That's all there is. Mm-hmm. There's no excitement to winning anymore. But if you have won your fantasy championship out there, I'm super happy for you. We're super happy for you. We're proud of you. It's definitely something to be proud of.
Yeah, if you have it wrapped up before tonight's game, it's pretty impressive because tonight has so many fantasy players. So for sure.
Oh yeah. And one of my beats, Greg, is like one of the bad beats. One of the worst beats. There's like nothing I could do about it. I would have gone down as probably the second highest scorer in the league, but just so happened to play Mike Evans.
Yep, and his best finally connected in the week. Oh man, brutal.
Yeah, I had to go against Mike Evans.
Brutal.
So yeah, just tell you how my week kind of went there. But let's talk about the quarterback swags. Let's break down the quarterback position. Talking about those swags, those guys that helped you potentially win fantasy championships this week, and starting with the number 1 quarterback on the week, saved his best for last. Thomas Edward Brady, 34 of 45, 432 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, all of which went to Mike Evans. Did add 4 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown here, 37.7 fantasy points. This is not the Brady it's January now. So Brady December, not so good, or December Brady, not so good. January Brady is a different Brady, and showed us exactly why with this performance. Greg, what did you think of the performance by Tom Brady here?
Yeah, he came through again when he needed it the most. When the backs are against the wall, when they need a win, he's definitely saved his best for last. Getting into both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. It seemed like he was only throwing to those 2 people, and they dominated. So he had a good game for sure.
Yeah, great game there for Tom Brady as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers clinch the division, clinch the postseason there with a win over the Carolina Panthers. Let's move on to another playoff clinching quarterback, the number 2 quarterback on the week. Don't know his middle name, but Daniel Jones, 19 of 24, 177 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 11 carries, 91 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 36.2 points. Greg, what do you think of this performance here by Daniel Jones.
Yeah, keep solidifying his, really success as a quarterback rusher. Like he's definitely, created such a expectation for him as a rushing quarterback in this league. And the last two games have been probably two of his best passing games in a long time, for sure. Getting it to his receivers in some tough coverage as well this week. So yeah, it was pretty good. And yeah, I'm proud of him. Proud of doing James Jones 12 bound.
Yeah, man. I believe that I have this stat correctly, but he was one of, I think, just 4 quarterbacks with two passing touchdowns and 90 rushing yards. I think I have that correct. But either way, it was a fantastic performance by Daniel Jones. And yeah, I mean the Giants have some work to do this offseason. We're trying to bring back not just Daniel Jones, but Saquon Barkley as his backfield running mate as well. Let's move on to the quarterback 3 on the week. And no one saw this coming except for one person. And his name is Greg Penman. We had a conversation off air about Jarrett Stidham. And Greg was saying Jarrett Stidham was going to do well. And I was like, yeah, but just not this week, right, Greg? And he's like, nah, he'll do all right this week, because it's the Niners, so he'll do okay. But yeah, he's probably
and then light it up next week against Kansas City.
Yeah, and then light it up next week. Wait, who do they play next week?
Kansas City.
Oh,
no, Denver plays Kansas City. Sorry, you're right.
No,
it's they
Kansas.
do. Right. Yeah, they play Kansas City.
So Jarrett Stidham, much to Greg's chagrin, 23 of 34, 365 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, added 34 rushing yards on 7 rush attempts, 26 fantasy points. So, Greg, why don't you just tell all the people why you saw this coming here from Jarrett Stidham against the 49ers?
365 and 3 against arguably the best defense all year. It's been the best defense in the league. Is definitely excellent performance. And probably, first start, probably not a lot of tape on this guy. I'm sure that did help a little bit about what he could do, but he looked great out there. And yeah, it's just, coming in, the offense around him was pretty good. He found that connection with Devontae Adams immediately. So that's definitely great to see. Still in a loss, so it just shows, that defense still has a lot of work to do. But yeah, should be good. I'm glad I was able to get him in Dynasty. That's why I'm mostly happy about it too. So spent all my bad budget on it. I didn't think I need that much, but yeah, it's worth it now.
Yeah, I mean, just I hope for the sake of your Dynasty team that Tom Brady or Jimmy G don't come into Las Vegas to be the next Raiders quarterback. But just staying with Jarrett Stidham, I mean, I didn't watch most of the game. The Jets were playing at the same time. This game was on Red Zone, and it was, it went later than most of the 4 o'clock games because it did go to overtime. So, Stidham showed well, in crunch time, especially. I mean, he did what I said I would do if I was a backup quarterback coming in. Find the number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
Just, 11 targets to Devontae Adams. Hey, we'll take it. There's like a 33% target share there. So let's move on to the rounding out these quarterback swags here. The number 4 quarterback on the week, Patrick Mahomes. 5, Russell Wilson. 6, my quarterback start of the week, Jared Goff. I'm going to hit this for that because why not? Quarterback 7, Deshaun Watson. Quarterback 8, my streaming week. Quarterback 9, Geno Smith. 10, Brock Purdy. 11, Justin Herbert. And I'm going to give it to you, Greg. And at 12 in the game that non-competitive.
Yeah. I'm saying, yeah. Kirk Cousins did not help at all. It definitely would have been a better day for Rodgers if Kirk Cousins just didn't have one of those days.
Oh man, it was definitely one of those days for sure. Greg, are these top 12 performances though? Which of them tend to stick out?
Definitely, again, Jared Goff finishing the season very strong for potentially playoff bound Detroit Lions team. Sam Darnold again coming through late in the season, so that's good to see. And yeah, Russell Wilson again getting it done against Kansas City. Yeah, he seemed to find a nice with playing them last 2 weeks, couple weeks. He's been attacking them for sure.
Yeah, Russell Wilson this time getting it done with 2 rushing touchdowns. I couldn't have told you that I foresaw that coming, but I definitely did like Russell Wilson this week. Golf, like you mentioned, my start of the week had fantastic performance again, and gets Green Bay next week. And what is a win and you're in type scenario for both of these teams? I mean, I think I think Detroit might need some extra help if that's the case. But in regards to Green Bay, all they need is to win against
Mm-hmm.
Detroit, and they are in. So uh, basically a win in your in scenario with Jared Goff and Aaron Rodgers. I would expect to be a fair amount of points in that game. Deshaun Watson, had his best performance as a Cleveland Brown, ended in a 24-10 victory, which ended Washington, essentially ended Washington's playoff hopes. They needed some things to break their way, and that didn't happen. Geno Smith in the revenge game here against the Jets,
Mm-hmm.
finishing as a quarterback 9. I mean, the Jets have been quietly giving it up a little bit these last few weeks to quarterbacks. It was something I mentioned prior to this matchup here, which is kind of crazy because you look at the box score, and Tyler Lockett and and DK Metcalf combined for like 3 catches. So how does Geno Smith finish as a top 9 quarterback? Yeah. But yeah, Justin Herbert saving his essential best for last here, finishing as top 12 quarterback. But in terms of honorable mentions, all we really got is Mac Jones, 16 fantasy points, the quarterback 13. Don't know how many people had him in their lineup, but he is somebody that I'm sure somebody out of desperation had to start. But let's talk about anybody else you want to shout out from an honorable mention standpoint, Greg, before we jump into the Jags.
No, I think that was it. Yeah.
All right, so as we get to the Jags, I feel bad making Justin Fields a Jags, considering that Mac Jones was essentially an honorable mention, but that comes down to expectations. Justin Fields, I think we expected to have a top 10, top 7 performance here. Finishes as the quarterback 14 in championship week. Not great. Did have 10 carries for a $132, but only 7 completions on 21 attempts for 75 passing yards. It did also seem like he was dealing with an injury at one point in the game. I wasn't really sure what was going on there. Kirk Cousins had probably the biggest faceplant of all quarterbacks for championship week, and what you were hoping would be like a scenario that Minnesota needs to win to basically keep their, they had a shot at the 1 seed,
Yeah. Yeah, they still
especially
do.
Philadelphia losing.
Yeah, crazy.
So just face planted essentially, and then Mike White as well had a face plant against a good Seattle defense. He just looked off yesterday. Uh, I don't know if there was the ribs or the long layoff or whatever it was. And then Trevor Lawrence, I mean, that game was just non-competitive. Talk about a
Yeah.
non-competitive football game. And they got leads early, and none of which Trevor Lawrence had anything to do with.
Yeah, that was going to be a weird game. We thought coming in just because Jacksonville doesn't really matter to them, but yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the running backs, starting with the number 1 running back on the week. Stop me if you've heard this one before, Greg. Austin Eckler, 10 for 122, 2 touchdowns, 4 catches, 39 receiving yards, 32.1 PPR points. Greg, your thoughts on the performance here by Austin Eckler?
Yeah, I've been doing it all year. Just been the fantasy MVP at the running back position. This man's been excellent, doing what he's got to do. Being, a guy that's most of those receiving touchdowns that, a lot of receiving touchdowns from Herbert been to Eckler as well. He's been doing it both running and catching. So yeah, it's just a cap to what has been a fantastic year.
Most definitely. Um, yeah, and we saw one thing we hadn't seen from him really all year, which is that big playability. Broke that 70. I think it was a 70-yard touchdown run, which we haven't really seen those plays from Eckler, much this year. Um, but yeah, fantastic performance. Moving on to the RB2 on the week, Christian McCaffrey, 19 carries, a buck 21, one touchdown, 6 receptions, 72 receiving yards, 31.3 PPR points on the day. What do you think of this performance by CMC, Greg?
CMC coming through late as well with some big games. Had a big run in this game as well. Yeah, he's been absolutely money the last 5 weeks. Just been outstanding. And one of the best things for him was that trade. So he's just going to continue to year from year be a great success for this team.
Yeah, balling for sure. Let's move on to the RB3 on the week, man. And this one feels like poetic justice in a sense. You've been needing this guy all season, and probably the biggest moment of your season. If you've made it this far with him on your roster, kudos to you. But DeAndre Swift, man, 11 carries, 78 rushing yards, a touchdown on the ground, added 4 catches for 39 receiving yards and a touchdown through the air. That was good for 27.7 PPR points on the day. What do you think of this performance by DeAndre Swift?
Swift coming through again, late in the season. I'm just, a matter of him, I think, getting healthy. But for sure, he had an up and down year. Health didn't help him out a little bit, but it's good to see him finish strong here, especially in both getting a passing touchdown and receiving touchdown, showing what he can both do.
Yeah, I mean he's a dynamic weapon on the ground, through the air. So yeah, it was great to see him involved. Not quite the year that I would have liked, that I hoped for personally for DeAndre Swift, and I'm sure he hoped for better for himself as well. But the injuries had definitely had something to do with him being limited throughout the year. Let's round out these running back swags, man. At running back 4, Raheem Mostert. 5, Travis Etienne. 6, Jamal Williams. 7, Jerick McKinnon. 8, Cordero Patterson. 9, Najee Harris. 10, Josh Jacobs. 11, Jermichael Hasty. And then they're coming in as a running back 12, my start of the week, Tyler Algier. Greg, what'd you make of these top 12 performances here at the running back position?
Yeah, a lot of good ones. Cordell Patterson making his way back in there. That's really good to see. Travis Etienne had one of his best games, a huge run as well. And yeah, Jared McKinnon, I think he's literally been a league winner at the running back position coming down the stretch. Guy you could have got on waivers all year, and last 5 weeks has been a bona fide RB1. So it's really good to see him do this.
Yeah, Jerick McKinnon, man, is great. RB7 on the day with 2 total rush attempts for 4 rushing yards, and no rushing touchdowns. But those receptions, those touchdown receptions, those are worth more than rushing yards. So definitely like the what we've seen from McKinnon, like you said, a waiver wire guy that you were probably desperate when you picked him up, and he's been balling, man. Yeah, Travis Etienne, 9 carries for 108 rushing yards. Finished his day with 12 total touches, 23 fantasy points. So that's great. Najee Harris probably played the best game he's played all season, like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Just like even just the eye test, just how he was running, the dominance, the determination. It seemed like it required at least 7 Baltimore Ravens defenders to bring him down at any given moment in time.
Yeah, even Jalen Warren ran well as well. It was both those guys. It's really
Most
nice to see.
definitely. Most definitely. And that leads right into the honorable mentions. Jalen Warren, I think, finishes a top 20 for running back. Kenneth Walker, the third, finishes the running back 13 in a huge day for him. Cam Akers, the running back 14, just continuing, what he's been doing these last, since last week. James Conner, who's been a staple down the stretch here. Aaron Jones, Isaiah
Mm-hmm.
Pacheco, both had solid games here. What else? Is there anybody else that stuck out to you positively, Greg, that you want to shout out in this moment?
No, I think that was it. It was definitely a strong week for these running backs. Coming through in a big way.
Yeah, definitely a strong week for most of these running backs, but unfortunately, there were a few that let you down this week. Starting with some big names in Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Leonard Fournette, Miles Sanders, Ramondre Stevenson. That's back-to-back bad weeks, and then even some of these lesser known, quality, these lesser known guys like Brian Robinson, who you thought would have, I know I personally thought would have a big day, especially with knowing Antonio Gibson, Zach Moss, who thought that could have a day behind, against this Giants defense. But obviously, the quarterback situation and Nick Foles going down mid-game definitely didn't help. Bam Knight, who was your running back start of the week, ended up being in like a committee for an offense that didn't score any points or didn't score a touchdown. So yeah, just an overall rough day for some
Dalvin
big
Cook
name
too.
running back.
Didn't come through.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook, that's a big one. Didn't come through against a much improved Green Bay defense. Greg, anybody else that I might have missed that you want to shout out as a Jag right now?
Yeah, no, that was a lot of names. So yeah, I covered them all.
All right, let's move on to the wide receiver position and the wide receiver swag, starting with the number one wide receiver on the week. And I should have put out like a memo or a public service announcement that, hey, guys, everyone listening, watching, playing fantasy football, Mike Evans should be in your lineup because I'm going up against him in a championship.
Right.
So I had a duty to the people, and I didn't meet that responsibility. And so for that, I'm sorry. But hopefully you started Mike Evans because he had 12 catches, 10 targets, 207 receiving yards, and 3 touchdown receptions here. 48.7 PPR points on the day, Greg. What'd you make of this performance by Mike Evans?
Crazy, man. It's crazy. Definitely, something he does. He has this boom potential. When his boom happens, it could get really high. But just the stretch he was having, he was really true boom or bust production lately. I mean, 4 of the last 5 weeks, he had a single-digit game. So yeah, this definitely came out of nowhere against a Carolina defense. We thought was a pretty solid defense all year. Yeah, crazy. He really balled out. The J.C. Horn, I guess, difference really doesn't help this team.
Yeah, the lack of J.C. Horn for Carolina definitely hurt. And at one point, it seemed like Carolina was going to be okay. They I don't know if you heard the story about Josh Norman, Greg.
No.
But Josh Norman was playing in an NFL game this past Sunday. If you didn't know. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how desperate the Carolina Panthers were. They called Josh Norman, who is an owner of a coffee shop in Atlanta, coffee shop and bakery. And when he received the call, he was working as a barista in his own coffee shop. So,
wow.
Yeah. And just for reference, just to talk about this Mike Evans game, right? Mike Evans in this one game had 207 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns on 10 receptions. Over the previous 4 games, Mike Evans had 16 receptions, 215 receiving yards, and no touchdowns. So he essentially racked up 3 to 4 games of production in this one game here. So just kind of put that in perspective. And now we'll not finish, but still one more game to be played. But in the 6 through 16 games, 1,124 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns on 77 catches. Will look like a totally normal year. And no one will ever remember that this happened.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Anything else that we're still on Mike Evans. Let's move on to the wide receiver 2 on the week. That would be Devontae Adams. 11 targets, 7 receptions, 153 receiving yards, 2 touchdown receptions on the day, 34.3 PPR points on the day. Greg, what do you make of this performance here by Davante Adams?
Yeah, I was glad for him to come through finally in the fantasy playoffs and clutch weeks. I mean, since week 14, which is the money weeks, he really hasn't done anything for your fantasy team. But if you got to the finals with him, Jason Stidham, I guess that's all he really needed in this last couple of weeks. So glad to see him come through here. Hopefully, he can continue finish off strong, and should be a good week.
It's funny because you said Jason Stidham, but I knew
Jared
you were.
Stidham. Yeah. Jared Stidham.
All he needed was Jason Stidham.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, again, just a great performance for Davante Adams, who, like it or not, he was very, vocal about the Derek Carr benching and whatnot. But like it or not, Davante Adams is going to have to get used to playing with a quarterback not named Derek Carr. So nice way to start there, Davante Adams. Moving on to the wide receiver 3 on the week. And it's funny because when we were breaking down the Niners versus the Raiders game, I said Christian McCaffrey, top 3 option at the position, George Kittle, top 3 option at the position. And then I said Brandon Ayuk, top 3 option at the position. But then I was like, just kidding. Probably closer to a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside. But here the wide receiver 3 on the week. And I know what you're probably thinking, Greg. Like, that's good for me because I have a decent amount of Ayuk stock. Like in our Dynasty League, I have Ayuk. But against the team that had Mike Evans, they also had Brandon Ayuk. So while I had George Kittle, so I was basically doing from the beginning. I was doing from the start. Should have known. I think in the future, what I'll do when we go to a championship week is I'll just post a screenshot of my opponent.
Yeah,
so then you guys
play a FanDuel lineup for sure.
Yeah, play a FanDuel lineup. Yeah. Take some prop bets.
Yeah, easy.
Right? Like, imagine you took like the Mike Evans over and like
over 100 yards and a touchdown. That's it. All you need is 100 and touch. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, the wide receiver 3 on the week, that would be Brandon Ayuk. 9 catches on 12 targets, 101 receiving yards, and a touchdown reception on the day. 26.7 PPR points on the day. Greg, would you make of this performance by Brandon Ayuk?
Yeah, solid. Definitely a great performance from him as well. Brock Purdy getting into his receivers, his pass catchers. We know Vegas was a really good matchup, so this definitely helps. But for sure, 49ers are rolling at the right time, man. They just doesn't matter who's that quarterback, man. They have an excellent system.
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about, even with Deebo Samuel being healthy, Ayuk has been the primary receiver. With Kittle having taken that role in recent weeks, teams are, make a concerted effort to try to stop Kittle. And now, Ayuk ends up being the primary option here. So, I mean, no one needs to tell me how good Ayuk is. I've legitimately will fight anybody for the status of the number 1 Ayuk truther. So yeah, this happening in championship week, fantastic performance by him for sure. Let's move on to the wide receiver swags. Rounding out the top 12 wide receivers, at wide receiver 4, Amari Cooper, 5, DJ Moore. We had Chris Godwin and CeeDee Lamb tying for the wide receiver 6. Richie James finished at 8. Devontae Smith 9. AJ Brown 10. KJ Osborne 11. And Jalen Naylor, the wide receiver 12 on the week. Greg, what'd you make of these performances by these top 12 wide receivers?
Yeah, some good performances. I mean, Amari Cooper and DJ Moore finishing strong there. The 2 Eagles wide receivers, even in a bad scoring output, they came through as being the guys Minshew looked for. So both of these guys, wide receiver 1s on the year, is for sure. And then 2 Minnesota Vikings receivers not named Justin Jefferson, definitely making that top 12. Very interesting.
Very interesting to not have a Justin Jefferson here amongst 2, or Adam Thielen amongst 2 Minnesota wide receivers. Yeah, Richie James, that one. I mean, Minnesota or Indianapolis, they've been giving up the slot receivers, so that one kind of felt easy. Not easy. I don't want to say it felt easy, but it felt it was difficult to like really really stick my thing in the ground there, my stake in the ground on that one. But it came through. So if I'm glad if people needed help there that they went in that direction. DJ Moore continuing to have his resurgence here with Sam Darnold, and like you said, the Eagles wide receivers getting it done. Let's round out. I guess some honorable mentions here: Jacoby Myers, Michael Pittman Jr., Mike Williams, Isaiah Hodgins, Tyquan Thornton. Just to name a few guys that had some nice performances at the wide receiver position. Greg, anybody else that you thought had a solid day that you want to give some flowers to right now?
No, I mean, other than Rashid Shaheed, just the last like 5 weeks, he's been solid as a number one receiver on New Orleans. Everyone else been hurt. He's been pretty solid.
Yeah, and the thing I like about this performance by him was Chris Olave was active this time as well. And so, yeah, it's definitely a great performance by him. He's been fantastic and someone that, if you picked up in a dynasty league, you're definitely happy to have.
Sure.
All right, let's talk about the Jags, man. And there's really one name that starts the list, but it's decently sized list here. But it starts with one name, Justin Jefferson. I mean, how do you even recover from this one, Greg?
I mean, he's been money pretty much all year. The only games he doesn't do well is when Minnesota has those games where they just are embarrassing offensively. So the Cowboys game, feel like their 4 losses they've had lost by a margin of like 20 or more. So seems like this, he definitely rides with this offense. But other than that, he has been money all year.
Offense ride with him?
All this offense probably does ride with him. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, KJ Osborne had a day, so that is another solid day. Good day for him. Jay Alexander did play very well. I mean, definitely had some good help over the top too. A lot of safety help did help him out, but Jay Alexander did what he had to do as well. So
yeah, that was interesting coming into the game. I don't know if you caught wind of what was said before. Jair Alexander saying that Jefferson's week 1 performance was a fluke. And then Alexander came out and he, like you said, he there was some times where he had safety help, but there was times where he was one-on-one.
Yeah.
There was the time
he was pressing him at the line of scrimmage, bumping him, like he was doing everything it took.
There was a time where he raked out a completion, which forced the incompletion, and then got up and immediately hit the gritty. Yep. I was like, this game's on another level. I was like,
No, he definitely played really well. Jair Alexander, one of the best corners in the league. So if someone could do it, it's going to be him.
For sure, most definitely.
Yeah.
Rounding out these Jags, man, Jalen Waddle, obviously Teddy Bridgewater not playing, then Skylar Thompson coming in for an injured Teddy Bridgewater definitely doesn't help. But Tyreek still finished wide receiver 17. So I think if you're a Waddle manager, you were hoping something could happen. Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't have the day that you would expect with Jared Goff having the day that he had. And then Keenan Allen finishing as the wide receiver 25, I believe it was this far. Definitely not an ideal performance there in championship week. But he didn't kill you by any means. I mean, I think he's still got double-digit points. Again, just no one was playing like Tyquan Thornton or Shee Smith or Jalen Naylor. So it does it, in the grand scheme of it, does it really kill you? Probably not. Anybody else that I'm missing here from a Jag standpoint, Greg?
No, I think those were the names that really came down to the guys that you're playing in week 16, week 17. Yeah. Maybe Deontay Johnson too. He could have had a better game.
Yes, the Deontay Johnson, and he was definitely in start of the week consideration for me. I was really high on Deontay Johnson this week. Speaking of, Craig, I believe you beat me.
I did.
You did.
It was
So
expected though.
it was
That's the
expected
script.
because
That's the script.
we wrote the script itself.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But yeah, so obviously we're talking about Get Money right now, where Greg was able to beat me and Get Money, and so now we have a rubber match, Week 18 rubber match here, which we'll discuss on Saturday. So obviously we want to be here to break that down. But let's jump into the tight end swags. And I don't know, man. I should do Thursday night starts of the week more often. Did my one and only Thursday night start of the week for this season, and I hit it out the park with Dalton Schultz with 2 games left to play, or 1 game left to play still, finishing as the tight end 1, 7 catches, 56 receiving yards, 2 touchdown receptions, 24.6 PPR points on the day. Where's my button? I gotta hit my button.
Mm-hmm.
Tight end 1 day for Dalton Schultz thus far, Greg. What'd you make of this performance by Dalton Schultz?
Yeah, man, being an excellent option for Dak, middle of the field. Watched this whole game pretty much. Middle of the field, short distance. He was money. He was pretty much open a lot of the times too. And Dak should continue to feed him and look for him. And he has an important game next week too. So that's good to see.
Most definitely. And then for this next guy, I brought his name up. I'm not going to hit the button.
Sure.
But I did bring his name up. I did not know, this is full disclosure. I did not know prior to this game, though, that DeAndre Hopkins would be downgraded to out and not play, which I'm sure had an impact on this stat line. But the matchup was good. He has been seeing some targets. Obviously, we're talking about Trey McBride, the Arizona Cardinals tight end, who finished as the number 2 tight end on the day. 7 catches on 10 targets, 78 receiving yards, and a touchdown, 20.8 PPR points on the day, the touchdown being the first of his career. Greg, what'd you make of this performance here by Trey McBride?
Yeah, I mean, this is, we thought this week will come at some point for sure. Him popping off. He's probably, one of the best talents to come out the draft last year. And his target number has been nice, especially with the injuries, to those people in front of him. So last 3 weeks, got at least 3 of the last 4 weeks, a little over 5 targets, seen the ball more. And this is a great, I think, dynasty asset to have, and a name we could be looking at as a sleeper tight end next year for sure.
Definitely could be looking at that. Don't know who the head coach or the quarterback will be at this moment in time, as currently those two are feuding. So between Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, so only one can stay. I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to come down to. So we'll see. We will see. Let's move on to the tight end 3 on the week.
Crazy.
I held it down for as long as I could without saying, hey, we should bench him. And I think last week was the softest that I was, where I was like, if I'm going to play a Raven outside of the running backs, it'd be Mark Andrews. But I understand where you would be hesitant to play Mark Andrews. But I hope you played him. 9 catches, 9 targets, 100 receiving yards on the dot. 19 PPR points on the day. Greg, take it away.
Yeah, man. Just when you thought it would never happen, I mean, that's when you needed it the most. If you made it to this point with Mark Andrews, I mean, the man hadn't hit double digits since week 12, and he came through here. So it's definitely, good to finish strong. At least people remember how you finish for sure. So I'm glad he came through here. And I think he's obviously back on the starting radar because, he can obviously pop off like this at any moment.
Yeah, and I think this is why he should have always been on the starting radar, and it's kind of what I was saying, when we were breaking down this game, just hey, we've seen him be good. It's not like Tyler Huntley is all of a sudden making him bad, because we've seen him good with Tyler Huntley. So, the fact that there's a chance he can just be good again, in a game I didn't see this game coming, but like that he could have a game. And let's be honest, right? Like if Trey McBride and Dalton Schultz don't have the games that they have, Mark Andrews is probably the tight end one, right? Like this is a really good week for tight ends. Like a really good week for tight ends. But let's talk about our touchdown or not tight end of the week. I swear next year we're gonna have a drum roll. Last week we went with the Detroit Lions tight end. Actually, we did not go with the Detroit Lions tight end. We could have gone with the Detroit Lions tight end. We went with Taysom Hill. This week we're going with the Detroit Lions tight end, and that is Brock Wright, not Shane Zylstra, but Brock Wright. This week it was his turn to catch multiple touchdown passes. My man had a 3 or 4 target, 3 catch day, 13 receiving yards, and 2 touchdown receptions on the day for 16.3 PPR points. Obviously, those 2 touchdowns are why he lands here in the top 12 or even in the top 4. Greg, what'd you make of this performance here by our touchdown or not tight end of the week?
Oh yeah, definitely didn't see it coming. Definitely was thinking Zane Zylstra would continue to bump up a little bit, but just when you think that, Brock White comes out of nowhere. So I mean, good performance from him. Detroit tight end coming through. Nice.
What you need is one of those leagues where you get like team position. You heard of those leagues, right? So you need to draft Detroit tight end.
Yep.
Because at one point it was Hawkinson, and then it was Brock Wright, or then it was Shane Zylstra. Now it's Brock Wright again. So if you're one of those,
it's like top 5 tight end right there.
Yeah, it's a top 5 tight end. Like,
yeah.
No, obviously, just I don't think those leagues even exist anymore. But I'm sure they're out there. Let's round out these top 12. So Brock Wright came in as a tight end 4. Darren Waller comes in at 5. Colby Parkinson, 6. Robert Tonyan, the tight end, 7. Tyler Conklin, 8. There are some names here. Yeah. Albert Okwuegbunam, the tight end, 9. Taysom Hill, 10. TJ Hawkinson, 11. Tommy Tremble tying with George Kittle for the tight end, 12. Greg, which of these top 12 performances stuck out to you?
Every time Taysom Hill finishes in the top 12, I'm for it. I mean, he's been all year actually a solid tight end option if you're actually just playing him consistently. Albert O came out of nowhere, crazy, with Tyler Conklin as well, and Robin Tonyan. Those are 3 guys like you're like, oh, tight end sleepers of the year, and here they are, week 17.
Woo. Crazy stuff. Al O was somebody that I think Greg Dulcich went, which I took an L for Greg Dulcich in our thing. I completely forgot he was in my lineup, and he went to IR. So I just took a 0 at tight end. Could I just been like, I was gonna play Trey McBride?
Right. I think you still lose.
Do I still lose even if I get Trey McBride?
It's close. I mean, I won by 20, 21.
3.5. Yeah. Plus 7.8, that would have been 11.3 plus the touchdown, that would have put me at 17.3.
Okay, then no. It still wouldn't have been enough.
It wouldn't have been enough? All right.
Nah, yeah.
But, all right. So anyway, once Greg Dulcich went out, Al O moved up significantly in my rankings. Yeah. We talked about the Taysom Hill thing, how Philly has been bad against mobile quarterbacks. And, if New Orleans picks up on that, then maybe Taysom Hill has a role, which carried the ball 14 times.
Crazy. Add the running back tag to him too, man. Give him the running back tag.
And then Darren Waller just, having himself a nice day there. Mm-hmm. We never do honorable mentions at the tight end position, but notice when I was reading out the top 12 tight ends, I did not read Travis Kelce's name.
Correct.
So if he didn't end up in the Swags, sorry, Travis Kelce, but you're a Jag this week. 11.3 PPR points, 7 catches, 43 receiving yards. Nowhere near what people thought they were getting in championship week. Greg, what'd you make of this performance by Travis Kelce?
Yeah, tough. I mean, he got targeted 10 times. He's still involved in the offense. But yeah, first time he's had under 50 yards receiving since week 5. So that's tough. And that was the only other game he had under 50 yards receiving. So definitely a bad time for it to come. But hey, man, Travis Kelce, he got you here for sure. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, definitely tough. It's funny. I said no honorable mentions, but I did want to shout out one name as an honorable mention, and that was Juwan Johnson, because he got 11 PPR points, which in any normal week that would be enough to finish as a top 12 tight end, and he did it without scoring a touchdown.
Impressive.
So impressive for Juwan Johnson. Shout out to you. Just want to give you your flowers there. We've appreciated your efforts all season. And don't go too far because we might need you in week 18. Not going to jump into much news and injuries other than week 18, our breakdown. There's two Saturday games and then Sunday games. I don't think there's any Monday Night Football. If it does, it doesn't really change much for us from what we'll be doing. There is no Thursday Night Football. So what we will do this week in terms of scheduling, on Thursday, we will break down live as we do weekly. We are a live show on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and we're also available as a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, all that fun stuff. But we will be here Thursday live, breaking down the 2 Saturday games along with the 1 p.m. games, and then on Saturday we'll get our last part 2 of the season. We'll break down all the 4 p.m. games, the primetime games, as well as give out starts for the week, and play our last round and get money. And then, that'll put a wrap on our regular season schedule. And then we'll obviously after that we'll do some hits and misses. We'll do a hits and misses recap of the year, and that'll be pretty much it. But if you are playing week 18, or if you want to play some DFS, you want to do some prop bets, then make sure you come back on Thursday for those breakdowns and whatnot. And just next week or this week to hang out with us. But if not, we appreciate all the support. Congrats on your championship. If you didn't win a championship, then just stay with us and we'll help you get one next year. But for what will be the last time this season, Greg, let's talk about waivers.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Starting at the quarterback position again. Now, week 18 is a little bit weird, right? Because depending on playoff scenarios, clinching scenarios, teams might not be playing starters. They might be playing starters. We might not know until the 4 o'clock window if the 4 o'clock game matters based on what happened in the 1 o'clock window. So there's like a lot of like reacting to news, knowing like depth charts, knowing what milestones people need to hit, like contract incentives, just records, like all of these different things. So it'll be a little bit different in the type of information that we get. But with that being said, Greg, week 18, what quarterbacks are out there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely looking at those teams that are going to put their best out there, those bad teams that are not playing for anything but pride. And I think Jarrett Stidham, 1% rostered, going against Kansas City. I think he's a name that we got to be looking at. Russell Wilson, 49% versus the Chargers. I think he coming off a couple of weeks now where the offense has been doing much better, getting the connection to Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. He should continue to put up some numbers. Brock Purdy, 45% rostered versus Arizona. 49ers also have a shot at getting that 1 seed, so they're going to put up their best foot forward against Arizona and get that win. And Sam Darnold going against New Orleans, 7% rostered. Last 3 weeks, he's been pretty much money. And Carolina, again, just going for pride in this case. And Sam Darnold, trying to extend his career and saying, yeah, I mean, I could be a good quarterback in the league. So I think those four guys for me, I'm looking at to stream right away, and those are all solid matchups for them as well.
Most definitely. I'm just out of curiosity. I've noticed that you did not bring up Mike White. Are you off the Mike White bandwagon for the year, or
Is he? I mean, if he's still under 40, I think he could be actually. I feel like he could have creeped up, but if he is not, then yeah,
because they do get
I have him too.
Miami in Miami.
Miami needs to win the game at least.
Miami needs to win the game. The Jets do not need to win the game, but the Jets are still playing, like you said, they're playing for pride.
26% roster. Yeah, he's definitely an option for sure.
Okay. What about the running back position, Greg? What do we got there?
I got three names here. Jaylen Warren, 12% rostered. Again, a name we've been brought up the last couple of weeks on waiver wire. He's been getting more and more usage. I think helping Najee Harris out, so he could be more efficient, so he's not getting banged up all game. Jaylen Warren's getting, I think, close to 10 carries to that 15, 12 carry number a week. He's been pretty efficient with that as well. So I think he can be in that RB3 category. DJ Dallas and Chuba Hubbard are the second two guys. DJ Dallas with the Travis Homer injury, kind of stepping into this number 2 role with Kenneth Walker in an offense that wants to run the ball. So he's also got some RB3 potential, some possible RB2 upside if he scores, as well as Chuba Hubbard when it comes down to not a lot of rushing yards, but again, he's working in that receiving yard game because it was a high-scoring game for Carolina. Carolina playing New Orleans this week. Could be a tough rush defense at times. They could look at Chuba Hubbard in the receiving role as well again.
Nice. I like that. What about the wide receiver position? Anybody here that can provide some help for us this week in Week 18?
Yeah, I think some consistent play from KJ Osborne, 11% rostered. I think, again, I was saying he's eventually I think going to take this number 2 role as far as receivers, wide receivers over Adam Thielen. It seems like he's getting targeted more over the past couple of weeks, especially after that the breakout game, comeback game against Indy. So yeah, it's been Jefferson, TJ Hawk, and him. Isaiah Hodgins, 9% rostered, as well as Richie James, who both been kind of playing well down the stretch as well for Daniel Jones in these good matchups. We'll see what the Giants decide to do next week, but I feel like they would want to go into the playoffs with some momentum there. And Raheem Shaheed, 3 of the last 4 games, he's been in double digits. In the last 2 weeks, he's got targeted at least 5 times. And you said with a Chris Olave game, him being one of the few healthy receivers on the team, them trying to create any offense they can, he'd be a good player.
Nice. And what about, last but not least, the tight end position?
Tight end, looking at 2 names, Trey McBride, 4% rostered. They're going to keep highlighting him, just getting him NFL exposure, getting him ready for next year. I think where he'd be a solid feature tight end. And Juwan Johnson, 28% rostered, 2 of the last 3 games, at least 4 receptions and 60 yards receiving. So that's, again, that production without the touchdowns. He's been solid as being a borderline tight end 1.
Nah, I like it a lot. Thank you, sir. And with that being said, that pretty much closes out our Week 17 recap. So good luck to you if you need anything. I basically need tonight's game to go to the coin toss. For some team, probably the Bengals, to kick a field goal and the game to just end like that.
Right.
That's really what I need. I think Greg needs the entire game, needs to hit the over. Joe Burrow, 300, like 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, Logan Wilson get like 12 tackles, which he's been doing.
I could have had a little juice in this game, but I sat Jesse Bates, safety for the Bengals.
Okay.
He was the only piece I really had. But yeah, it's gonna be a good one. And it
really is. It should be a good one.
Yeah.
It's going overtime, man. I'm calling right now. It's going overtime.
Overtime, my man. All right, you should put it in. You should go ahead and put it in.
Yeah, might as well. I'll put it in. Yeah, $5. Yeah.
I don't know. Tonight might be the night I try to go hit and exact a score. Who knows? Until next time, y'all, good luck in your fantasy championships. Wish you all the best. Hope whatever comeback you need, hope you get it. Whatever your opponent needs to make a comeback on you, I hope they don't get it. And until next time, y'all, we'll catch y'all on Thursday, breaking down Week 18 and helping you that play in the Week 18 championship, which you shouldn't be doing anymore. But for those of you that do, we got you covered. We'll be here live and here helping you with that. Until next time, y'all, have a good one. We're out of here. Peace.
We out.